Okay, so today, November 5th, I thought of talking about architecture and fire. And the question, the legitimate question is why? Why today, November 5th, to talk about architecture and fire? The answer is here. Just a second. It's in England, in Great Britain, is the Guy, I'm not sure how to pronounce Guy or Guy, but I imagine Guy, because actually the word Guy originates from this name, Guy Fawkes. You know, today, everybody is a guy. Even sometimes I saw the word is being used even, irrespective of the, you know, if there are girls or boys, you know, like in the saying, hi guys, you know, well, the word guy comes from Guy Fawkes. And today is an important holiday or celebration in Great Britain. It's called either Guy Fawkes Day or Guy Fawkes Night, or both. Let's read about it. Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Guy Fawkes Day, Bonfire Night and Fireworks Night, is an annual commemoration observed on November 5th, primarily in the United Kingdom. Its history begins with the events of the 5th of November, 1605, when Guy Fawkes, a member of the gunpowder plot, was arrested while guarding explosives the plotters had placed beneath the House of Lords. So they wanted to blow up the parliament. Celebrating the fact that King James I had survived the attempt on his life, people lit bonfires around London. And months later, the introduction of the observance of 5th of November Act enforced an annual public day of thanksgiving for the plot's failure. So Guy Fawkes was actually, I began to read, I'm not very knowledgeable about it, but there are some conflicting reports. He was you know, a protester who was executed because the plot was discovered. But I'm not sure if he's seen as completely negative character, or there are also some positive traits. I have to learn more about this. But here he is, well, in an engraving and etching, whatever it is. And here he is, you see Guido Fawkes, because apparently he fought in Spain. And here are the plotters, those who plotted to blow up the parliament and to kill the king. And apparently, yes, well, this is in Spanish, Guido, but in English is Guy or Guy. And the word Guy, which is so employed today in all quarters and in all circumstances, comes apparently from him. So even this effigy of this mask of the protester that is encountered in the present comes from him. So an interesting character. I'm tempted to want to know more. But because on this night, the Guy Fawkes night, the celebrations you know, are done with fires and bonfires, I thought, by the way of it, to talk about architecture and fire. So an effigy of Fawkes burned on the 5th of November 2010 at Birkey in England. This was 11 years ago. You see, this is the effigy, you know, representation of this strange character and fire. Apparently, Guy, the word Guy, means kind of like a worthless creature. I'm still a little bit confused if this name evokes only negative traits or also positive or only positive. festivities in Windsor Castle by this person from 1776. Again, you see fire here. Fire because, you know, the plot was to be enacted with, you know, with gunpowder, and you know, it didn't happen, but somehow it remained in the collective consciousness as some kind of, you know, fire event. Spectators gather around a bonfire at Himley Hall near Dudley, wherever this is, on the 6th of November, although this special day is actually the 5th of November. This happened in 2010. So again, by the way of this, truly as a pretext and nothing more, I thought of talking about architecture and fire. First, let's start with Gottfried Semper, because I think this is very important, truly very important. This very important German architect of the 19th century and theoretician, he identified, this was the man, he identified the beginning of architecture with, he told a story that the first house ever built came into being in this way. Some hunters and fishermen returned from work in the evening, and they gathered around the fire. And they didn't yet have a home, but they thought, I mean, they understood the ultimate importance of fire. So they wanted to protect that fire, and they didn't have the tools to cut down trees or anything like it. So they just removed branches from, you know, bushes or whatever vegetable material they had around them, and they through weaving they created some kind of enclosure. And then they understood they have to elevate fire from the earth to protect it from floods, from animals. So they created a platform, and then they ended the, you know, this process of initiating the building of the first house by making the roof. So he thought that there are 4 elements, primordial elements of the first house. The first one, the hearth, where the fire was, vatra in Romanian. Then the enclosure, which was done through textile work, so to speak, because it was woven with vegetable material that they found around them. And then the platform, the stonework, and the carpentry of the roof. So the 4 elements of architecture, which I just mentioned, the hearth, vatra, the roof, the enclosure, and the mound. And this is, I think, a very valid, you know, interpretation or, you know, imagining of how the first building, the first house came into being. Now, here there is a text I don't usually like to read, but, you know, I'll just read some fragments from this page. The origins of each element of the 4 can be found in the traditional crafts of so-called Asian barbarians. The hearth, with including metallurgy and ceramics, roof, carpentry, enclosure, textile and weaving, and the mound, earthwork. And he said, Semper stated that the hearth was the first element created. The first sign of settlement and rest after the hunt, the battle, and wandering in the desert is today, as when the first man lost paradise, the setting up of the fireplace and the lighting of the reviving, warming, and food preparing flame. Around the hearth, the first groups formed. Around the hearth, the first groups assembled. Around it, the first alliances formed. Around it, the first rude religious concepts were put into the customs of a cult. And Semper continues, throughout all phases of society, the hearth formed the sacred focus around which took order and shape. It is the first and most important element of architecture. Around it were grouped the other 3 elements, the roof, the enclosure, and the mound, the protecting negations or defenders of the hearth's flame against three hostile elements of nature. Okay, and here you see the primeval hut with the hearth and the enclosure, which was woven, and the mound, you know, elevating a little bit the hut from the earth, and the roof, the four elements. And here they are again, the four elements of the primeval hut. The origins of each element can be found in the traditional crafts of ancient society. The hearth, fire, ceramics; roof, carpentry; enclosure, weaving; and the mound, stonemasonry. Okay, this is a house by Frank Lloyd Wright, which was burned down by fire. Strangely, Frank Lloyd Wright had extreme reverence for fire. All his homes, all his houses had at the center fire. But strangely, the gods of fire punished him twice severely. In the first case, in a terrible fire that destroyed some of his house in Wisconsin. He also lost the woman he loved and her children, her sons. And in the second, he lost an important collection of Japanese woodcuts. This is the man, this is Frank Lloyd Wright with a fiery scarf, so to speak, in old age, but still cocky and dandy-like, very well dressed in the desert. Another picture of the important, of the great architect. And yeah, we'll come back to Frank Lloyd Wright and his fireplaces. Here is another house by Frank Lloyd Wright, which was destroyed by fire. And again, he loved, he had the utmost respect and love, yes, for fire. And you know, strangely, fire acted out, and he was, as I said, the victim of two two tragic events provoked by fire. Now, the hearth in Romania. I think there are beautiful examples of vetre, of hearths in the folk architecture, and I imagine it's possible perhaps to bring them back in contemporary architecture in some form. The hearth was indeed the center of the house. You know, look there, it was table, it was a cooking place. It was truly the center of the house. That's where, you know, here you have the husband and the wife, you know, gathered around the hearth, which was even sculpturally very interesting and engaging and complex. So, you know, the hearth means fire. It's as simple as this. Without the hearth, and without the fire, you wouldn't have maybe even a family. And certainly you would not have a house or a home. Fire, fire, the very important element, if I am to call it so. Now, here it is a beautiful short text by Emile Cioran. The beauty of flames lies in their strange play, beyond all proportion and harmony. Their diaphanous flare symbolizes at once grace and tragedy, innocence and despair, sadness and voluptuousness. The burning transcendence has something of the lightness of great purifications. I wish the fiery transcendence would carry me up and throw me into a sea of flames where, consumed by their delicate and insidious tongues, I would die an ecstatic death. The beauty of flames creates the illusion of a pure, sublime death, similar to the light of dawn. Immaterial, death in flames is like a burning of light, graceful wings. Do only butterflies die in flames? What about those devoured by the flames within themselves? It's truly a very beautiful short text by Cioran. And indeed, when we talk about fire, we also talk about the inner fire, the flames within ourselves that Cioran refers to. This is a project I showed it. I don't want to repeat myself, that I did kind of inspired by, in a way, by fire for a Times Tower in New York City, which I imagine to be red, of course, because it was also the South, and it symbolized the sun, the king, sulfur, and fire. And because it was a symmetrical situation on the site plan, well, in New York City, you have 42nd Street and you have 48th Street, and between them, exactly at 45th Street, New Yorkers call it the crossroads of the world. So you see the site plan is almost like an hourglass, a long elongated hourglass. So I imagine two towers, one for the fire or for the king or the masculine principle, and the other one here at north, a tower for water, for the queen. And in front of the two towers, I imagine two large urban thrones on which the white one, which was obtained from cutting a sphere, would see the red king, and on the red one would see the white queen, and they would face each other. You see them here and here. So again, at 45th Street, where Broadway and 7th Avenue intersect, this special place, New Yorkers call the crossroads of the world. Anyway, I was influenced here by a book, Psychology and Alchemy by Carl Jung, and I did another project at that time. You'll see it too. But here is Frank Lloyd Wright at Taliesin West. It's very strange because what I see here is very similar to something that I did in the next project that I'm going to show, where again I played with two opposites, the masculine principle and the feminine principle, fire and water, king and queen, sulfur and mercury, and so on. It's really amazing. I mean, it's a coincidence, but I worked for a competition, and I created a plan which is almost identical with this. But I didn't know of this. This I discovered many years later. He actually himself, you see here incised in the stone, something by the Native American Indians, which was, this stone is on the site of Taliesin West, Frank Lloyd Wright's residence. You know, maybe it's some kind of a universal motif, or I don't know how to call it. And this was the project I did then. Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult to read because I made it kind of complicated. But you can see here where is the ceiling plan, that it's almost identical with the logo of Taliesin West, of Frank Lloyd Wright. And here I imagined, the red force, fire, would enter through here, and the white force, or the queen, the feminine side, would enter through here. So they would circle each other and meet in the center where there is a throne, a chair. I call it a ceremonial chairs for two people. Or as you can see from this sketch, well, the resolution is not great, but you can still see the hermaphrodite, the being with the sun on the left and the moon on the right. So it was an attempt like to unite sun and moon, sulfur and mercury, king and queen, fire and water, and so on. Anyway, it was again about a quest for wholeness. This was another project I did, and I was helped by an Egyptian architect who is now in the United States. She did the modeling with Maya. And we put here the text by Choran that I just read. This was done exactly for a bonfire, for a celebration. I think it was in Scotland or Iceland. And you see, we inspired ourselves from a temple in Iran, and try to create this thing that would, when the celebration was to take place, some green material, vegetal material would be placed in the interstitial spaces of these things, which would not be affected by fire, and then create a bonfire. And so it was some kind of a, it was to be 5 meters tall and 3 meters wide, a thing to be used for the ceremonial purpose of creating a bonfire. Now we go to Heraclitus. I jump from one to the other because the subject is very complex, and there are so many examples of possible relationships between fire and architecture. But let's not forget Heraclitus, who in the 6th century before Christ, he saw that fire is the beginning of all things. Why would Heraclitus choose fire as the first principle of the universe? How could fire change into the other elements? How is fire always constant yet changing? Someone asked these questions. Let me read a little bit. Fire plays a central role in Heraclitus. He calls the entire cosmos an ever-living fire. Fire is his first principle. All things are exchanged for fire, and fire for all things. Fire changes into various other elements in a cosmic cycle, although the details of this cycle are unclear. Heraclitus equates fire and God, or Zeus, as the divine ruling order by referring to the thunderbolt that stirs all things. So why did Heraclitus place such an emphasis on? The English is not good. Anyway, should I read this? Let me read it now that I started. It seems unlikely that fire played any physical role that made it more appealing as a first principle than water or air, chosen by earlier pre-Socratics. Heraclitus was a pre-Socratic philosopher himself. In many of the fragments, most notably and cryptically B65, this is, I guess, his oeuvre, part of his opus, Heraclitus assigns contradictory properties to fire. This could point to some form of the harmony of opposites being his motivation. I think that fire played an illustrative role, whoever wrote this. Heraclitus used many analogies and word pictures to explain his views. Fire may have been for him a perfect example of his whole theory. A fire is constantly changing as it rises up to the heavens. The flame blazes up, and never at any moment does it seem constant. And yet we call it the same fire. In fact, if the fire stopped changing in this way, it would die down and stop existing altogether. It is dependent on its change for its existence. So the universe, which is the same for all, has not been made by any god or man. That's what Heraclitus thought. But it always has been, is, and will be an ever-living fire, kindling itself by regular measures and going out by regular measures. Okay, fire, which is which guarantees life, but it's also fire which destroys. And in between the two sides of fire takes place what we call life. The cosmos was not made by gods, but always was and is eternal fire. That's what Heraclitus said. Okay, Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier didn't, as far as I know, address fire except through, except obliquely, through his obsession with the sun, and the sun represents fire. It's fire. It's energy. It's warmth. And you see, in the sketches of Le Corbusier, there is always, or very frequently, a sun on the sky. Again, here, the sun, which can very well be associated with fire. Again, the sun and the moon here at Chandigarh, dans le palais de l'Assemblée, possibilité de fête cosmique, la lune, le soleil. In the palace of the parliament at Chandigarh, the possibility of cosmic events, the moon and the sun. Here again, the solstice, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice, which we are approaching now very, very quickly. In December it will be. So always Le Corbusier is concerned, very concerned with the sun. Again, here the sun, you know, which in the morning goes up, and then in the evening goes down, and then a new morning will come when the sun again comes upwards. Le soleil se lève, the sun gets up, and then the sun gets up again. Le soleil se lève à nouveau. La journée solaire, the solar day of 24 hours. Rhythm, activity of people, of humans. So yeah, Le Corbusier was continuously concerned with the sun, but the sun brings warmth, brings life, just like the fire. So between the sun and the fire, there is you know, they are you know, they represent almost the same principle, and thus you cannot truly separate them. They are correlative, the sun and the fire. Here you see a sketch by Le Corbusier with the sun and you know, the moon. If strangely he represented the moon rather, you know, ferocious, but it was really about duality and about the conjunction of the opposites. And of course, l'unité d'habitation in Marseille, where he used the Brise Soleil to defend the apartments from you know, problematic light. Anyway, now Chambord in France, a great chateau which has on the roof unbelievable chimneys. Look at them. They are glorious. They are celebrations of fire. But you know, in terms of beauty, and they are not small. I mean, look at the size of a human being. This is an incredible architectural achievement on top of the chateau, built by François Ier, a great French king. So, you know, in the name of fire, there was a lot of creativity coming from architects, and not only from architects, but now we talk about architecture, and we talk about architecture and fire. These chimneys are great. I had been there on the roof of Chateau of Chambord, and I can tell you, it's unbelievable. It's a surreal landscape. Now the modern chimneys, look at it. Beauty is gone, it's only efficiency, and from an aesthetical point of view and philosophical point of view, not to speak about a poetical point of view, it is a disappointment. It's just a phallic presence without grace, without mythology. Rudolf Steiner, this is a firehouse in near his Goetheanum, and fire it is indeed. Well, he was lucky, he didn't have an architectural training, so thanks to that great blessing, he was able to conceive and build something like this, which no so-called serious architect would do. Gaudi in Barcelona. Yes, Casa Mila. We are going to look more in detail in it, but these chimneys are unbelievable. I had been here on the roof, and you know, it's a magical landscape. This is not at Casa Mila, but still, I think it's a Palau, the Güell Palace. Now, Zaha Hadid fire station. One of her very early works, and they look at the plan and the elevation or section. It's about the outgoingness, if I am to use this word, if there is such a word, a fire. It's a fireplace, so it represents energy, and it represents also threat. You know, being a fire station, I guess the symbolic choice of aesthetical expression is appropriate. Now, red buildings, some red buildings. This this is a red building which actually was built by Coca-Cola, and you know, Coca-Cola, you know, associates itself with redness, but not in that superior sense Heraclitus talked or thought about fire. Anyway, it's commerce. This is a building. So I only show some red buildings because redness is indeed associated with fire, and this was in a park built in China, where several architects were invited to build, you know, architectural structures, and here they are. I mean, this is one of them, built by a Mexican architect, I think. Another red building, I don't know who built it. This is Bernard Tschumi at Parc La Villette. Red also has political connotations. You know, it's about the left, and it's about revolution. It's about change. It's about protesting also. Guy Fawkes was executed because he planned a big explosion to eliminate the parliament and the king. Red again. Bernard Tschumi, Architecture Concepts. Red is not a color. It's written on the very cover of the book. Again, Bernard Tschumi at Parc La Villette. Red structures. This is not by Bernard Tschumi. I don't know who built this, but it's red indeed. And this is red also, but I don't know where I took this image from. Anyway. Ricardo Bofill near Barcelona, this important complex of apartment buildings, labyrinthical as they are, but the redness is also present here. The same building by Ricardo Bofill and Taller de Arquitectura, the same. This is Legorreta, I think, the Mexican architect. I don't know. I mean, it's an architecture that, yes, has reddish parts, but does it have that incandescence of fire? In part, maybe, I don't know, maybe not too much, in my opinion, but it's red indeed. I don't know if this was not proposed also by him. Here we have the green and the red, two opposing colors on the wheel of colors, but the building, as it was envisioned, rather commercial, in my opinion. Anyway, it was built, red itself. And I see here also, you know, firemen. I don't know if this building is serving some function for the firemen or not. Romeo and Juliet, Frank Lloyd Wright. Here we don't have redness, but we have the fire of love and passion and physical attraction. It's actually a water tower, not a fire tower, but look at the plan. It's about love. That's why he called it Romeo and Juliet. And here it is, an early work by Frank Lloyd Wright in Wisconsin. So there are many meanings to be associated with fire. Romantic passion is also to be mentioned, and also physical passion. And you know, it has many meanings which should be acknowledged. Fire temples in Iran. Iran had, because of its Zoroastrian spirituality, a great reverence for fire. And they built many temples, fire temples, and we are going to see some of them. I think these were Iranian architects who gathered this temple, all of them. Anyway, great structures, and in positioned accordingly on top of hills and mountains. Yes, fire temples. So it seems the Zoroastrians, they would have agreed with Gottfried Zemper that indeed fire is the most important element, and it has to be protected. And more than protected, it has to be revered. You see here at the bottom, fire temple, a part of the constellation of many fire temples that exist in Iran. Now, I will show you another project of mine which has to do with fire. I didn't send it, but I did some work on it for the Memorial Gardens at the World Trade Center in New York. So what I did, I imagined a forest of columns, one column, commemorative column for each person who died. So there were around 3,000 columns, and the plan of the fallen towers were here, one here and one here. So I imagined, I proposed to have a mound and the intersections of the diagonals, or the center of the plan of one tower, exactly there at the top of the mound, to have a continuously burning fire. And the same here. So it would have had two fires continuously burning as an homage or a commemoration of the fallen towers and those who died. Well, the person who helped me with the rendering didn't quite know how to, to render the fire, but you kind of understand the idea. It's a forest, as I call it, of black basalt columns, in each one of them to be inscribed a short narrative about the life of the person who died, and then the center of the plan of one of the towers had to have this continuously burning fire. And this, well, as I said, the project was not finalized. This column should have emerged from the grass or from the earth without any base, but he had to leave, so he left me with the work unfinished. Anyway, an idea about connecting somehow fire with a terrible tragedy when the two World Trade Centers fell. Now, Baku in Azerbaijan, these are flame-like skyscrapers or towers built in Baku, well, that they mimic the flame in terms of shape, but anyway, maybe at night they could evoke to an extent fire, because they are flame-like. The shape approximates, that of flames. This is in Baku in Azerbaijan. And also in Baku is the well-known building by Zaha Hadid, which is this one, the Heydar Aliyev Cultural Center in Baku, which is white. But to an extent, you could say that maybe some kind of a white fire. It's more fluid. It's not really fire, but anyway, she built it. Now, this is an exhibition I did myself in Evanston, Chicago, a good number of years ago, called Red. It was, the opening was when the summer solstice happened. And I invited both local artists and architects from overseas, and they sent some work. So it was all about redness, the redness of the beginning of summer, the summer solstice. And it was inside my gallery, which was also my studio. And you see some pictures of, that I attached to the wall. We even see the Coca-Cola. This was actually sent by a Romanian architect who is now an assistant at UAUM, Justin Baroncea. So Coca-Cola again. These are some of my dreams in ArchiCAD. Also, red, if nothing else. And here on the wall, I reproduced the great poem, Homage Hymn to the Sun by the great Pharaoh Akhenaton, the great Egyptian Pharaoh who brought monotheism to Egypt. And it's truly a very beautiful poem, and you can see it on the web if you are interested to read it. Here is actually Imhotep and his wife Nefertiti. You see worshiping the sun, which is also fire. Anyway, nostalgia. All kinds of, this was an homage to the beginning of summer, but summer also, the summer solstice means fire, means sun, means warmth, means light, means passion. No, the summer, there are even films, with the celebration of human passion, when the summer begins. Ichnaton again, truly a great pharaoh, and Nefertiti again worshipping the sun or Ra, and two big stones hanging from the ceiling. I did some acrobatics there with found objects. Anyway, some photographs, some all kinds of things having to do with red, because this was the name of the exhibition. This was a little piece done by an architect from who studied at Cooper Union in New York, and she was at that time assistant professor at IIT, Illinois Institute of Technology. Redness again, rituals, flesh, blood, and red again, and red again, and red again. You see the announcement of the exhibition. Anyway, moving forward. This was my gallery in Evanston, Chicago. Lava, which is liquid fire, and which impresses me a lot. It's fire. It's liquid fire, and I think we can find some inspiration in this liquid fire. Now, the House of Crimson. Crimson is the color of Harvard University. And I wanted to launch a competition, the House of Crimson. This is crimson. And to me, it's a very sensual color. So I rewrote this text. Crimson is the color of blood. It is also the color of roses, the roses that killed the poet who loved them the most, Rainer Maria Rilke. It is also the color of the human heart, and it is the color of sin, as we read in the Bible. But it is also the color of Harvard University, the university that was chosen again as the best university in the world, and the university that will celebrate on September 8th this year. Well, this was some years ago, 375 years of existence. It is a place of privilege, of course, this school, but it is also a place that contributed significantly to the culture of the world. And in architecture, it was the place that chose Gropius as the head of the architecture department for almost 20 years. Let's try to celebrate this important year in the school's history with a house that uses the color of Harvard, crimson, in all its potentialities and qualities, symbolically as well. There are contradictions, of course. How would one marry the scholasticism generally associated with Harvard with the sometimes dark, so-called dark sensualities that the color crimson seems to evoke? Since we believe in paradoxes, since we like paradoxes and the conjunction of opposites, we felt that a meditation on the color crimson by the way of this important day in the history of a well-established school could make one aware of the contradictions and tensions of life in general. If the color crimson has indeed the attributes and symbolism mentioned above, how would it stand in the context of high, even superlative learning? Design a house of crimson. The House of Crimson designed the house of sensuality and erudition, designed the house of sin and moral rectitude, designed the house of life, unafraid of contradictions, design a crimson house for Harvard on the occasion of its 375th birthday. Anyway, a sculpture I did, which is also about conflict, because fire in its potentialities could both give birth and generate life and destroy. So it's also conflict. This I did by being playful with ArchiCAD. And yes, it is a conflict. And yes, there is redness. And yes, there is passion. And yes, there is contradiction. And yes, there is fight. Actually, Heraclitus, who thought that fire is the generator of everything, the beginning of everything, also thought that war is the father of all things. And here we have both fire, symbolically through redness, but also war, because it is conflict. It is tension. It is war. It is a fight going on here between two abstract entities. A burned building, this also preoccupied me. So it would be like ashes, a building that became ashes. Well, it's not a building in the conventional sense, but it could be built. It could be built exactly as it is, as a deteriorated structure that became, if we have to call them so, architectural ashes. A red building also done in the same way in the same period of time, also representing, the coagulation of a structure that in the end self-destroyed itself somehow. So it is. I try to evoke the doubleness of fire. Building and also destroying at the same time. Now, studies for a house for Francis Bacon by Shakira Hamad in Egypt, from Egypt. Here we also see the redness of passion, despair, disappointment, everything that animates the paintings of Francis Bacon. And the redness is emerging out of the structure in rather dangerous way. But you have here the tension, just like I try to evoke in that project for Times Square, the whiteness and the redness, and the complex dance, if I am to call it so. The House of Crime in St. Louis, I showed this project before, also by Shakira Hamad, where why crime? Because redness could also mean thanatos, could mean death, could mean fire, just like Guy Fawkes ended up being executed, and that's because he planned a plot that was supposed to kill with a powder gun. And so in St. Louis, which is was and maybe still is the crime capital of the United States, there is this arch by Eero Saarinen, which celebrates in an Apollonic way the conquest of the Europeans, of the land of the United States, present day United States. But this arch doesn't say anything about the malevolence of crime. So I launched such a competition, and Shakira Hamad sent this proposal for this structure with parasitic structure, which represents symbolically the untold story of St. Louis, meaning, that it is or was the crime capital of the United States. She didn't do this. I found this image, but in a way it's about the same thing. The violence provoked by the monster, which is not acknowledged. She did this with 3D Max, and I think she did a good job in trying to evoke in an abstract way the untold story of St. Louis. This crystallization of almost monster-like structure that irritates or sabotages or attempts to do so, to problematize the rather placid, Apollonic, affirmative, splendor of the big arch by Eero Saarinen. So, fire has dualities and built-in dualities, and I think they must be acknowledged. Now we arrive at the Frank Lloyd Wright fireplaces. Always in his domestic architecture, Frank Lloyd Wright placed the fire in the center of the house. It didn't matter the house was asymmetrical but without being very strict about it, the fire, the hearth, as Gottfried Semper mentioned, was always at the center. and he actually the house grew from the earth, but I would say also grew from fire. So always in the center of the houses by Frank Lloyd Wright, there is fire, there is the chimney, there is the hearth. Here it is, and here it is, and here it is. It's always there. I don't know if he read Gottfried Zemper. It's possible, but here is the falling water, also fire. Fire again. Well, it's not active fire, but the hearth is there. Falling water again. Robbie house again. The fireplace. 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 It's always like this. And you see in the plan, the fireplace is here. And it's always like this in his domestic architecture. Fireplace. Well, the books are kind of dangerously close to the fireplace, but there is no fire in the fireplace. Another fireplace, Frank Lloyd Wright on the right. Fireplace. In this plan again, the fireplace is here. As it is here. Fireplace. 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 So we can see clearly that for Frank Lloyd Wright, indeed, the hearth and the fireplace were, you know, generative forces. The house grew from it. Yes, he said that his houses grew from the earth, but they also grew from fire. Now, Antoni Gaudi, Casa Mila in Barcelona, which you know, and these chimneys are incredible. You know, they are great sculptural works, and they truly celebrate fire in a aesthetically engaging way. We don't do things like this any longer. We don't even think of the mythical power of fire. We are just functionalists, you know, bored by our own work, actually. You know, what architect today thinks of fire in this way? I don't know of any, actually. So we can learn something from Antoni Gaudi, and these are, you know, these silhouettes, you know, sculptural as they are, they create a surreal, just as at Chambord we saw those great chimneys. Here we have an example closer to us in time, where a great architect understood that you know, a chimney should not be just an utilitarian, you know, little necessity, but there is much more to it. He was helped here also by Jujol, the great architect who was a collaborator of Antoni Gaudi. But they are quite large. You see the silhouette of the human being. And the model of the house, one of the most important buildings by Antoni Gaudi. Why is it that today we don't think about such matters? Because we don't. You know, we simply don't. We just place you know, a flat terrace, and that's it. We don't think about, you know, the energy of the fire, which moves upwards and it's meeting with the above, meaning with the sky. We don't think of this, but Gaudi did, and here it is. And you have here great gatherings. Well, not now with the pandemic, but you know, theater spectacles, concerts, and everything around these magnificent chimneys at Villa or, you know, Casa Mila. Casa Batlló, also by Antoni Gaudí, a smaller building, but here also the chimneys are not, you know, left without the architect's interest. And there are interesting works here. And you see here at the top, the building culminates in a significant way and in an aesthetically engaging way. Again and again, are we doing something like this today? Not very often, as far as I know. There is so much creativity here, you know, and I'm sure it was very rewarding for the architects to work in this way. Casa Batlló by Antoni Gaudí. Now, sorry, I should have changed the text in English. This was from a previous presentation. This is the dark side of fire, you know, pollution, incredible pollution in the name of eternally advancing so-called industrial progress. Sad, but things changed since that time. Now there is an awareness and such things do not happen any longer, or at least not with the same devastating intensity. This is also fire. Now altars, I'm approaching the end of this presentation. Altars also are you know, they came into being because of fire. And here you have the Pergamon altar, the huge work which is displayed now in Berlin at the Pergamon Museum, but it originated in I think the 2nd century before Christ in Greece. And here you see a mythical hero offering, you know, sacrificial offering, or maybe not sacrificial, to the altar. The altar, which also is present in the Christian religion, and where is the altar? At east. Why? Because light, meaning the sunlight, comes from the east. And that's why the altar is at east, and you enter the cathedral from the west. This is, I don't know any longer where it is from, but it's a small alcove, like an altar in a Christian setting, a church or a cathedral. Here we are at St. Peter, you know, with the great baldachin by Bernini, and you see the sunlight. The sunlight is the cosmic fire, and so there is a connection actually between the you know, the great founders of religions, between the meanings of religion, between and light and fire. They are connected explicitly or implicitly. Another altar in a different you know, expression, so to speak. And now I end with a few images of fire from there is a holiday in Romania that takes place in some villages. I forgot how it is called, where the fire is you know, present at night in some kind of ceremonies. But you know, it's in a way we are closing the circle. We start.
Se cheamă Focul lui Sumendru și este undeva, a fost acum o săptămână jumate, cam așa. Și
Okay.
este o sărbătoare în care se strâng copii, din ce știu, și se dau bomboane ca de Crăciun, ceva de genul ăsta, numai că e ca un foc de tabără, numai că e la nivel destul de mare. Okay. Unde se pun cauciucuri și alte chestii. Nu prea e ok, dar e o sărbătoare care există.
All right, thank you. So, how is it called? San Petru? Anyway, yeah, but you see, it's kind of strange that it's almost a coincidence or a synchronicity between Guy Fawkes or the Guy Fawkes Day and night and the ones that still happen in some places in rural areas in Romania. Anyway, fire is indeed fascinating, and it fascinated people from the beginning of history and from the beginnings of time. And I imagine that that Gottfried Semper was correct, that the first house came into being through the attempt of the hunters and the fishermen to protect the fire, which was essential for their survival. And again, the relationship between fire and the sun, and you have at Stonehenge the great celebrations in which the fire of the sunlight is you know, at particular times during the year is making this you know, gathering of many people to kind of connect with the cosmos, with the sun, with the light, and with the fire of the sun, you know, and these things are important. But modern life, unfortunately, provoked a divorce between us and the elemental forces of the cosmos. Anyway, the sun exists, the sun is, if I am to paraphrase Louis Kahn, who asked himself, what is order? And he said, order is. Well, we could ask the same way. What is the sun? Really? The sun is. And we can ask the same, what is actually fire? And we could say, fire is. And here is Nefertiti worshipping Ra, meaning the sun, meaning the fire of the sun, the great wife of the great Pharaoh Akhenaton. Thank you.